everyone. This is Elsie Kerns, your Chaos to Clarity coach and Eden Energy Medicine practitioner. So tonight, very exciting, we have Marie Gilbert here, and she just launched her book. Bring it up for us, Marie. Okay, Life with Fred and Lucy.
Yeah.
About her neighborhood in South Philly.
Yeah, can you see it?
Yeah,
Okay.
Bring it down a little bit.
Okay.
So, Marie, first of all, congratulations on this new launch, because this is not your first book.
No.
But I grew up also in Philadelphia, and there is something very unique about the South Philadelphia neighborhood.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us how this book came about and a little bit about your mom and dad, because we were talking about that earlier and it was very interesting.
Well, my mom and dad were unique people. They opened a grocery store in the early 50s in South Philadelphia on 15th and Porter Street, St. Monica's Parish.
Oh.
Okay, so you know St. Monica's Parish.
Yes,
Okay, so at that time in South Philly, there was almost a little grocery store on every corner. Mm-hmm. And so there was competition with all these other little grocery stores. And then at about that time, a supermarket, one of the first big supermarkets opened on, I think it was on Oregon Avenue. And so my dad had to resort to some unique methods of beating the competition. And he wasn't only dealing with other grocery stores, but he was also dealing with the drugstore across the street, the hardware store on Broad Street. And just to give you one snippet from the book, when the supermarket moved in to this near our grocery store, my father had my mother go buy food there just so he could get the prices. But then he wanted to see how his prices were comparing with the other stores. So he had me and my sister put on costumes and go shopping at those stores to get the prices. But the kids knew us. So, and they would do the same thing to our grocery store, come in and all these weird... But this is like just a sample of how my father was a practical joker. And so most of the book is about his love of practical jokes and the trouble he got into. And the funny part is, like, I think I inherited that love for practical jokes because I'm always playing jokes on my family. But why I wrote the book was... my parents hang out in my attic, all right? My father died in my house on hospice. My mom was living in California, and they died several years apart. They were divorced, okay? But I knew my father was around right after he died. I would hear him. I would catch a glimpse of him. And then when my mom died, she started hanging out in my house, and I thought that was kind of weird because they were mortal enemies while they were alive. But for some reason, when you're dead, I guess you make up. I don't know. But I felt that I had to write the book because I blog. I'm a professional blogger. And I had my Gilbert's Curiosities, and I would write little stories about my father and mother. And all the people in my writers group, the South Jersey writers group, they were like, Marie, you got to write it in the book because this is unbelievable. What was funny was I was getting replies from people around the world following my Fred and Lucy on my blog. And I'm like, wow, you know, but I felt that I had to honor them in a way. I had to honor my father and mother because of their uniqueness, because of how they solved problems. It wasn't your Ozzie and Harriet type of way of solving problems. It was more like the Addams Family version of how to handle life. But they taught us to survive, and they taught us that there's always something you can laugh about. No matter how bad life is, you can always find that funny little gem in the middle of all this disaster. So I felt this was the only way I could honor them, because I write. That's how I keep them alive. All right. So when you see my father in this picture,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
with the hand on his chest, that was how I remember him all the time, because we were not the four most well-behaved children. And how many times he came in, he would go like this, "What are you doing?" Because we were usually up to no good. And my mother, with her arms crossed like this, that was my mother.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just want to comment to our audience that Marie is a psychic medium. And so when she just explained that they were living in the attic, she's referring to them after they passed on. Is this correct, yes. Marie? Yes.
Yes. After they passed on, they came and just hung out in my attic. My father loved living here. My mother wanted to come out and live here. So for some reason, I don't know why the attic, except I keep a lot of their stuff up there. And so maybe that attracts them, but they're here and they make themselves known. They let me know they're around. They'll make noises. I see things move, and I'm not afraid. If anything, this is reinforced everything else, all the other messages I've been getting from the dead, to know that they're okay over there. We're the ones that have to worry. When they're there on the other side, they're with God. They are happy and they're having fun. They're doing things, going places. They're still learning. You don't stop learning on the other side.
So tell me, earlier you were mentioning about when there were 4 girls.
There's one boy.
One boy.
I'm the oldest. Then my sister Janie, who lives in California. My brother Michael and my little sister Lucy, they live in South Philly. They stayed in South Philly.
But wasn't there a time when you could work in the store?
Yes, we did. When my father bought the store, I was almost 7 years old, and my sister Lucy was only 6 months old. So when they opened the store, they needed help. I guess today would be called child labor. Back then it was an education. Okay, everybody worked. So my father would stand me on a milk crate, and I would be cutting lunch meat. I would be taking care of the customers. As each child got closer to the age of 7, we were all working in the store, and we worked long hours too. My father had the store open 7 days a week, and he opened the store at 6:30. But we would come home from school and do our homework in the store, wait on the customers, and it was an education, because I think we really got to understand human nature, because you dealt with all kinds of people when you had a grocery store, happy people, sad people, so angry people. So everybody worked. And when we weren't working, the 4 kids, we were getting into trouble. Yeah. Because they were stuck in the store. They couldn't keep an eye on us all the time. And so some of the stories in the book are about the misadventures that my siblings and I got into when the parents couldn't keep an eye on us. And so,
can you give us one story?
Well, I'll give you a short version of that one story. Okay, so this is my favorite story. Is my father, because there was a drugstore right across the street, catty corner. And so my father would get all the medicines from there. Aspirins, the cough drops, you name it. But one day he said, I'm going to buy St. Joseph baby aspirin. So you kids are always sick. I'll have my own aspirins. Well, when the drugstore across the street found out he was selling aspirins, he started selling fruit. So he put a table outside his drugstore, started selling fruit. So now my father gets mad and he starts selling all this other stuff like milk and magnesia, Band-Aids. It was a war going on. And the poor customers that had to walk past our store, they were like hiding, just not, so they would pass the drugstore to get to our store. Or if they had to go to the drugstore, they kind of sneak around my father's store. It was a comedy routine. It got bad enough where the drugstore had like this big display of fruit and vegetables out on his, in front of his drugstore. And my father kept stocking up on pharmaceutical supplies. This is 1950s, all right? But eventually they made up, the drugstore and my father, and that stopped. But that's just like a sample of the stories. Another one is, and I'm not telling you the whole story, but my father liked to play pinochle. And so my Uncle Jack was one of the pinochle players, my Aunt Rita and her husband, my Aunt Louise, my Aunt Helen. So they would get together with a couple friends and play pinochle. But one day, Aunt Louise got upset with Uncle Jack because they were playing marriage and she threw the wrong card down. So then she got mad. She goes, all right, no one's playing cards. So my father needed Uncle Jack there. So he told my Aunt Louise that he had built a pigeon coop on the roof. Now my father has a bum leg. And my Aunt Louise couldn't figure out why he would put a pigeon coop on the second floor, the roof, when he can't even climb a ladder. But he did that so he could get Uncle Jack to come over to play cards. So that's another one of the stories. I don't want to tell too much because like one joke leads into another. But this is what my father would do,
Well, I remember when we were talking earlier, you said that even though you all saw ghosts and different things, yes, your father made sure you didn't tell the customers that.
Yes, because we could see them, and they could see them, him and my mom, but they didn't want to risk scaring the customers away, So they would always say, just don't say nothing to the customers. All right, we won't say nothing. But we were not, he never told us you're crazy. You're not seeing anything. He never said it was our imagination because he saw things. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's why my power grew as I got older. And the same with with my one sister, because she didn't shut down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
they allowed you to be who you were and to see them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Well, I think working alongside your parents, they can't hide who they are. When you're working right next to your parents, it's not like your parents walk out to go to work and then you see them at the end of the day. So you never see them in that work atmosphere. So you only know them at home as mom and dad. But when you're working right next to them, you get a different idea of your parents. You get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly, let me tell you. But it's a learning experience. And I think that this is a bond that we don't see nowadays. I think families are isolated more than we were growing up.
Right. So I see that Charlotte has joined us, and Julie, Nicole, Karen. Thanks for being with us. I just want to go back because you mentioned Marie, that you love your writing and blogging, and you have international followers.
I do. I have people from all over the world following my writing because, well, I have my two personal blogs, Gilbert Curiosities and then Gilbert Speaks. But I also wrote for, and I still do, for Biff Bam Pop, which is a Canadian pop culture site. And so I learned more about the blogging part, working for Andy Burns with Biff Bam Pop. He's the editor-in-chief. And he would just give me assignments. I would do interviews for TV actors on different shows. He would just say, you got an interview today you have to do. And so that helps you grow as a blogger. So now I do a lot of my own interviews. On my Gilbert Speaks, I do a lot of interviews on people. I'm always trying to promote other writers, other psychics. I always feel that what you put out there comes back. All right. So I'm helping other people. And in the meantime, my name's getting out there too. And I'm bringing in other people up the ladder. So that's what I try to do.
So exactly how would people click on or sign up for your blog? Is it
okay? So you need the site. So for the Gilbert Curiosities, it would be Gilbert Curiosities at blogspot.com. And on that blog, I maybe go off on my political point of view, but I also do psychic readings. I try to do them at least once a month where I'll pick a topic and I'll pull the cards and I'll give like a general reading to anybody who's going through this particular problem, either fear or loss or something like that. And so that's on Gilbert Curiosities at blogspot.com. Now that's my family, steampunky, zombie loving site. Then I have my professional one, Gilbert Speaks at wordpress.com. And there I do reviews for TV shows, I do interviews and stuff like that. So that's like a little bit more tamer than my Gilbert Curiosities, especially when it comes to political points of view. So I try to keep the two separate.
Well, that's a good idea, but it sounds like your readers really pushed you to write this book.
Yes. And it was really strange how that happened because I felt this need that I had to keep my parents' memory alive. All right. And whenever my cousins and I and my siblings would get together, the first person that would come up was my father. And they go, do you remember when your father did this? Do you remember when your father did that? Because my father was a practical joker, all right? So I started writing a blog on my Gilbert Curiosity blog around once a week. Once every 2 weeks, I would put a new story. Well, it got so that I started seeing all these followers to my blog. And people, especially in my writers group, they were saying, Marie, you have to make this a book because it's just too funny. So at that time, I wasn't sure how to do it because I had not published my science fiction books yet. So I wasn't quite sure, well, how would I do that? But then after doing the 4 science fiction books, then I was like, okay, now I know how it works. So I just had to get a collection of photos, old family photos together for my illustrator, the girl that does the illustrations for all my books, for her to get the pictures just right for us to submit to Book Baby. I used Create Space for my sci-fi books, but I used Book Baby for my Fred and Lucy book.
Well, I know your book is available on Amazon.
Yes.
Both in paperback and Kindle.
Yes, and on Barnes & Noble, too.
On Barnes & Noble. Great.
Yeah.
So I want to congratulate you because yesterday was your big launch day,
Yeah.
and you were over at the Treehouse Cafe.
Yes.
And
The Treehouse is where I do all my book launches because the Treehouse is just special. It brings the whole neighborhood together, and the people that own it, Randy and Tina, they're like guardian angels. So any book launch I do, I do there first. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and that includes readings and your mediumship. You do there
Yes.
also.
Yeah, they allow me to go there. I just go in the corner by myself if I'm meeting someone. I
Okay.
go there. I tell the person I'm meeting, you got to order something. You can't just sit here and not, But I'll do my readings, and I think they're comfortable with me because they know I connect to God with all my readings.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's to God, so I think
Right.
that's why they feel comfortable with me. Yeah, you
Yes.
my readings there.
So I had one experience with you, and you really go to a very spiritual place,
Yeah.
very heart centered spiritual place. Yes.
Thank you. That's right.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, your father must be delighted about being the star of this book.
I think so because I had another psychic friend walk in, and she said as soon as she walked in, she felt my dad there.
Uh-huh.
My dad's more forceful, so he'll appear first. My mother comes in second. But yeah, I feel like I was able to return to them what they gave to us. And I just hope what I'm doing passes down to my grandchildren and my great grandchildren when they come along, because there's a disconnect in this world. And I think you need to, like they did it in the old days and around the campfire, talk about the family, keep the history alive. And we did it growing up at my going to my grandmother's house for Sunday dinner. We told stories. We knew everything about my mother growing up in Italy, my father growing up. We learned this through stories. And I did that with my daughter, and I do it with my grandsons and my granddaughters. But not everyone does that. And I think we need to do this more often. Keep the spirits alive by talking about them.
I think that's very important. And we were even talking earlier about how the gifts that you have, again, you've enhanced them over the years, but how you feel they come right down through our genes.
They do. I honestly believe it. And from what the dead tell me, that this is all passed on, just like our hair color, our eye color, and even more than this. When we think of our psychic gifts, we're thinking like reading cards or doing the ghost investigations. But you have to remember our genes hold the memory of going back to the first human. Everything that was learned over centuries and centuries is all inside us. So we all have this gift. Not everyone is comfortable using it, so.
Well, you certainly learned the right way to use it for sure.
Yeah, I connect to God, and my only thing is I want to help people empower themselves, because a lot of people that come to me, they're afraid. They're afraid, or even worse, they feel they're not worthy. And right away I go, honey, you are worthy. You are loved, and you are powerful. And that's for men and women who come to me, because we're divine creatures just temporarily in this body. All right. So that power we had there in the heavens, we have here on earth, so we are worthy.
Well, you certainly embody that.
Well,
Do
thank
you
you.
agree that? Yes. You absolutely embody that. And again, from your heart. So Diane Aiello, hi. Great. I'm glad you're all reacting to our video here. And Julie, Nicole. Diane, I hope you're going to pass this on to your sisters as well. I know she and her sisters. Marie, how about what would you like to end with? I'd like, again, your website or a phone number, how people can get in touch with you.
Well, people could get in touch with me through my email, which is Marie, M-A-R-I-E, Gilb, G-I-L-B, at Comcast.net. Or they could private message me on Facebook. Yeah, so they could do that. And then normally I try to meet them. If not at the tree house, sometimes I'll go to their house if it's not too far away, because I have the worst sense of direction. but yeah, so people can reach me. The one thing I don't do is and I purposely don't do this. I don't do readings over the phone or like we're doing now via computer, because I have to hold on to your hand. I have to make physical contact with you to do the reading. Yeah, so that's the only thing. So you have to see me in person to do it. Now I do readings every Wednesday night at the Marriott, the Courtyard at the Marriott in Deptford, New Jersey. It's that new hotel. It's called Courtyard. The Courtyard at the Deptford at Marriott Hotel in Deptford, and I'm there every Wednesday night except for this Wednesday because it's a holiday. Yeah, so they can come there and I can read them too.
Yeah, wonderful. Hold the book up again. There it is, everybody. Life with Fred and Lucy growing up in South Philadelphia. So, Marie, thank you so much for joining me tonight and stepping a little bit to the other side of the world with me. And also the folks that have joined us. This is Elsie Kerns. This is Elsie Kerns, your chaos to clarity coach and energy medicine expert. If you need any help, you can go to wellnesswithelsie.com. So Marie, thanks so much. Everybody, so glad you joined us. We're going to sign off, but you know how to get in touch with Marie and get a copy of the book.
Thank you, Elsie.
You're welcome.
You are an angel. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you.
You're welcome, Marie.